Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So for this video, I'm going to talk about some comments that Jada Pinkett Smith made recently about her marriage to Will Smith, and also some other comments that she had made as well. And before I get into this, I just want to start off with some basic comments. And ordinarily, what happens in a marriage or in a relationship would be private, confidential matters. That would be something that's not subject for public discussion. And frankly, it wouldn't be anybody's business. But when you are a public figure and you publicly comment about your marriage and your relationships, at that point, it becomes acceptable subject matter for bloggers such as myself to discuss. So with that being said, Jada Pinkett Smith recently revealed that her and Will Smith have been separated since 2016. And the thing that's really interesting about that is, that was during the same time period, if I'm not mistaken, that she had that quote unquote entanglement with August. It's also during the same period of time when that whole controversy involving Will Smith and Chris Rock occurred, when Will Smith walked onto the stage during the Oscars and slapped Chris Rock. So at that time, they were separated. So one of the things that I have to say about that, about her revealing that they have been separated, it just, part of me feels like that should have been something kept confidential. It shouldn't have been something exposed to the public for public consumption, just out of respect for her marriage, if she still had respect for her marriage. And it's questionable at this point if she does. But it's like, why would you publicly expose that? Embarrassing Will Smith. I mean, it's one thing for both of you to agree, hey, we're going to let the world know that we're separated. But when you do this in a surprise, gotcha kind of way, that speaks to a level of disrespect. Because frankly, it's not any of our business whether or not you all are together. But now you've made it our business by talking about it publicly. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is like this facade that we see a lot of times. Like, we will see certain relationships and be like, oh, those are goals. And I know that at one point people were looking to Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith as like some kind of model for Black love because they have been together for so long and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times, length of time is not the same as the quality of a relationship. People can be together for a long time in a miserable situation. So being together with somebody for a long time, it has value, but it's not determinative of the quality of the relationship, as people obviously know. And it also speaks to like this idea that people want to look to some kind of role model, something to point to as an example, something good and something to aspire to. Like, they look up to these celebrities as if they are better than the rest of us, when they're just as fallible, just as, natural, or they make mistakes just like anybody else. They're just as human as the rest of us. So we got to stop looking at these people as like they're like some idols or some godlike subjects and stuff like that. And, a lot of people were frankly disappointed with another relationship, involving Papoose and Remy Ma and all that kind of stuff. They heard about allegations of infidelity and all that kind of stuff. And it causes some people to question whether or not Black relationships or Black love is possible. And it's like, we got to get out of the idea of viewing these celebrities as if they are idols, as if they are some kind of role models for us to sit back and follow. They are just as human as us. They make mistakes just like us. So that's one thing, in terms of her exposing this fact that they are living separate lives and all that kind of stuff. The other thing is this whole exposure of this separation that they have been living under for a few years. it raises questions about these controversies that have come up. For instance, the whole entanglement with August, the situation at the Oscars where Will Smith walked onto stage and slapped Chris Rock because he made jokes about his wife. It makes you question all of that. Like, why make a big deal about some of these things under the circumstances where you're separated from this woman? And one of the things that Jada Pinkett pointed out was she said that when Will Smith told Chris Rock to keep his wife's name out of his mouth during that whole Oscars incident, she was kind of taken aback because they had not referred to each other, Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, as husband and wife for a long time. So it kind of caught her off guard, with his reaction and stuff like that. So that's one thing, like, and it's just really, I know it's embarrassing for Will Smith, like, that this would come out. And I know, like, part of my thinking around this whole thing is like, why share this information now? I know that she has this book to sell and all that kind of stuff. It's like, why not make that as a joint decision instead of her unilaterally saying, well, I'm going to air out this business that we've been separated all this time. I mean, I think that shows a level of disrespect. Just bear with me a second. There's this beeping from this truck backing up. So just bear with me a second. I don't want to talk while this noise is going off. Okay, they should be just about done, so I'm just going to continue. So, so that raises a question of respect. Like, if you really have respect for your relationship and the person you're in a relationship with, you would, reach some kind of agreement to speak about these private things instead of just going out there and speaking on it. And perhaps she had some kind of understanding with him, but to me, it just seems like it just came out of nowhere. And maybe that's not the case, but that's the way it looks. And that looks very disrespectful. But it makes me question the whole thing, like this whole reaction to August. Like, if you were separated from somebody for years, you shouldn't be surprised if they're with somebody else. Even though I don't condone that, I think that if you're separated and you're still married, you still have a moral obligation to be loyal to that person. If you want to no longer be bonded in marriage, have the requirements of fidelity and, being solely committed to that one person, in my eyes, you should get a divorce. You shouldn't be in a marriage where you're unhappy. You shouldn't be in a situation where you feel like you want to cheat on somebody. It's just better to move on. But anyhow, it's just like, why express all this, like, make yourself out to be like some victim and, some hurt person if you were separated during the whole time when that thing was going on. Also, there are all these rumors that Will Smith was, doing the same type of thing, having his own entanglements and all that kind of stuff. But it just didn't get publicly exposed. That's the difference. So I'm like, what's with, the tears and the expression of pain if you know that you all were separated? And more likely than not, that you were having affairs as well. But somehow, Jada Pinkett Smith got, tarnished as just, the sole one responsible for everything that was going wrong in their relationship. The other thing, with respect to that slap, like, I understand the need to defend somebody. And as you all know, I did a video, like, basically saying that a man should stand up for his woman if she's being disrespected by somebody. But this is a different situation. This man has been separated from this woman for years, and for, the sake of appearances, he brought her to the Oscars, you know, so that they could appear to be some happy couple and everything and all that kind of stuff. When the fact of the matter, they're living their separate lives. So those are some quick thoughts about that aspect of it. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is Jada Pinkett Smith talking about these other men, bringing up other men. Like, for instance, she said that Tupac wrote her a letter proposing to marry her, or he proposed to her when he was locked up. I think it was in Rikers Island. And she basically said that she rejected his proposal. And I just think that that's messed up. That she would be speaking on, this proposal that Tupac made. First of all, Tupac's not here to defend himself. The other thing is, she knows that Will Smith is really jealous of Tupac, jealous of the relationship that she had with Tupac. Because she talked about how Tupac in his proposal, he was saying that she's like his soulmate and all this and that. So your husband is jealous of this guy, jealous of the relationship that you had with Tupac and all that kind of stuff. But yet and still, you're going to publicly air out this proposal that nobody knew about before and that nobody had any reason to need to know about. And I just think that is, again, a sign of disrespect to the marriage. And then also another thing is, like, with respect to Chris Rock, she exposed that Chris Rock asked her out after, at some point when he thought that her and Will Smith were getting a divorce. He asked her out. And it's like, why air that out? Like, why make that public information? Especially knowing what happened between Chris Rock and Will Smith. Knowing how Will Smith basically threw his career out the window, man, to defend you based on comments that this guy made, but yet and still you're going to expose that he asked you out. And then the other thing is, you basically threw Will Smith under the bus. Like, after he put everything on the line defending you, you basically said, well, that it didn't have anything to do with you, like his decision to go out there and jump off the roof, basically. Didn't have any, wasn't your fault, and that you were making an expression, not because you were mad about what Chris Rock was saying about you, but that you were mad that someone would make disparaging remarks just about people that are suffering with alopecia, a condition that they have no control over, a medical condition and stuff like that. It's like, you had Will Smith throwing himself out the window, basically, to protect you, and then you're like backing away from it, not acknowledging your role in the whole situation. And it's just unfortunate, man. It's just unfortunate. This whole thing looks like a textbook example of, someone being disrespectful, the way they deal with certain things, airing out private business, talking about these other men. Yeah, so those are just my quick thoughts about this. I'm really interested in hearing what y'all think about this. Man, it's just sad, man, seeing another black couple go through some horrible stuff. Like, again, we can't hold these people up to be like some kind of idols or role models, but it's still messed up nonetheless. And there are a couple of other things that I wanted to touch on real quick in this video that are beyond, Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith's relationship. It's also revealed in her memoir, that at one point when she was a teenager, she was selling drugs. And she talks about how her parents were on drugs and stuff like that, and how she sold drugs to be able to provide for herself, and she didn't want to be dependent on a man. And, I just find that really interesting. So I'm really interested in, I'm frankly interested in reading her book. I read Will Smith's book with our book club, And more likely than not, we'll probably read her book, probably get around to reading her book real soon. If you're not following New Possibilities Book Club, I encourage you all to follow the book club on Facebook. And there's one other point that I wanted to make about this situation, if I can remember it. It was like right on the edge of my tongue. Another point that I was going to make about this situation. It may have to wait for another video because that thought just escaped me as I was talking. But with that, please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, and hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here. Peace and blessings. And if that thought comes back to me, I may do a separate video. So I finally remember my point. Jada Pinkett Smith never wanted to get married to Will Smith, but he insisted that they get married. Also, her family insisted that they get married. And so she basically gave in to the pressure and decided to marry Will Smith. And to me, based on everything that has unfolded in their marriage and relationship, it just seems like they were never meant to be married. Like, Will Smith never should have insisted that Jada Pinkett Smith marry him. And it just goes back to this lesson that many people have talked about here on YouTube. You know, these relationship coaches talk about, like, and that's pursuing someone that doesn't want to be pursued, chasing someone that doesn't want you. If someone shows you that they have no interest in taking a relationship to the level that you want it to go to, or they're not interested in you the way you're interested in them, then that should be a sign for you to stop pursuing that person. Because wearing down somebody to the point that they finally give in to you is not a good idea, because all it means is that they finally just gave up. They never wanted to be with you in that kind of way. And they will make that known every chance that they have to make it known. And that's what Jada Pinkett Smith has done time and time again when it comes to Will Smith. So again, stop pursuing people that have no interest in you. Stop trying to persuade people to see you the same way that you see them.